We welcome you to the Eagles pregame show brought to you by SeatGeek. I'm Goldstein, joined by Sam Heine. The Eagles are looking for their 9th straight victory today over the Carolina Panthers. The 9-3 Panthers, the 10-2 Eagles. The Eagles are back at Lincoln Financial Field for the first time since November 14th. That is when they beat the Washington Commanders on Thursday Night Football. And since then, the Eagles have been playing their best football with their best win of the season last week in Baltimore. Now they take on kind of the red-hot Panthers, who have been playing in some closer games recently. Sam, how are you?
Doing great. We've got a real Super Bowl contender on our hands, 8 wins in a row, going for 9 today. Doesn't get much better than that. When the Eagles are looking as well as they have the last couple of weeks, every game, even one like this against an opponent that doesn't have a best record, you just can't wait for it to get started because you're just excited to see how they're going to play this week. So, really excited. Glad the Eagles are back home finally for the first time in a while. I know they have a few more home games coming up the next couple of weeks, but excited to get this one going. It's a little weird for us. I feel like we haven't had a 12 o'clock start for us and then a 1 o'clock game in a long time, but ready for this one to get going.
Yeah, big on the 1 o'clock games. You get the game over with early, and it's watch Red Zone the rest of the day. You get get to sleep on a normal time. And so I'm ready to go for this 1 o'clock game. And, well, the Eagles could clinch a playoff spot today. It's very slim, but I'm going to pull up all the chances. Here we go. Stop lagging. All right, here we go. These are the Eagles' chances at clinching a playoff spot today. There are 10 ways they can do it. And it's a lot of combinations. I don't feel good about it.
Yeah, 10 different ways that they can do it. So obviously, it's crazy that this earlier in the season, I know Buffalo and the Lions have already clinched their playoff spots, but normally the first game in December, I guess technically the second game in December, you're not normally looking at playoff possibilities, but here we are with how hot this team has been. And all of these could definitely happen. I think obviously the ones at the top are a little bit more likely to occur, but either way, the Eagles are definitely on their way to a playoff spot, whether it's this week, next week, week afterwards. So, but it would be nice if they could have that at least locked up today.
Yeah, that would be nice. Set your focus now onto the 1 seed. And, well, Eagles.com says that we should be cheering for the Seahawks, Vikings, Raiders, and Bills today. So, okay.
Yeah, so the Vikings one's a little weird because it helps us make the playoffs, but it also hurts us for the 1 seed because the Vikings are also sitting at 10-2. They've had a very surprising season. So a lot of people are looking at Detroit for that 1 seed, obviously, because they have that 11-1 or 12-1 record wherever they're sitting at now. But they only have 1 loss, so they're obviously ahead of us in terms of the 1 seed. So it's a little bit of do you really want to root for the Vikings to win? Because that hurts us in the 1 seed. If the Vikings lose, I know they have to play Detroit down at the end of the season. That can be a really big game. Obviously, for the 1 seed possibilities, as one of those teams will probably end up being the 5 seed, which is crazy that we could potentially have a 2 or 3 loss team as a 5 seed. But it's a little bit of a weird thing because more important, the Eagles are going to clinch a playoff spot eventually anyway. So I think obviously the 1 seed is a little bit more important than clinching a playoff spot today.
Yeah, it sure is. So, but the Eagles, no matter what, they're going to have to win today. And, well, you look at the Panthers and, 3-9 since 2016, Cam Newton, the Panthers haven't really been much of anything. And now over the past few weeks, Bryce Young, who was the first overall pick last year, finally looks like he's turning into the guy he was always supposed to be. Since week 8, he has 1,062 yards, a 60.4 completion percentage, 6 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Last week against Tampa, he completed 26 of 46 passes for 298 yards. He threw a go-ahead touchdown to Adam Thielen with 30 seconds left in regulation. The Buccaneers ended up winning that game. The Panthers have lost back-to-back games by just 3 points to the Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs. So, they're playing well, but they're going against the highest-rated defense in the NFL. How should and will the Panthers fare today?
Yeah, I mean, you said Bryce Young's definitely been playing a lot better coming out of Alabama last year as the number one pick. The biggest thing always with him was his size. He's very small, and not a lot of small quarterbacks really have a lot of success in the NFL. Drew Brees is one, but he had so much success because of how accurate he was, where Bryce Young is not very accurate. He's completing less than 60% of his passes so far this season. As we all know, he was benched earlier in the season for Andy Dalton, and a lot of people thought that was the end of his time in Carolina. Carolina has kind of been, like you said, since they went to that Super Bowl, when as soon as Cam Newton kind of started to decline, they have been running through different quarterbacks, different head coaches like crazy. They had Reich, they had Matt Rule, they had PJ Walker as their quarterback at one point. They brought back Cam Newton at one point. So they've just kind of been a dumpster fire of an organization since really since they came off that Super Bowl. And then once Cam started to go down, they just haven't really been able to find anything that sticks. And, a lot of people thought that when they benched Bryce Young, that meant that his career in Carolina was over. And then all of a sudden he comes back and he starts playing really well. He's still not completing a high percentage of his passes, but you're starting to see a little bit more of those flashes of, hey, this is why this guy coming out of Alabama was that number one overall pick. You see some of the all 22 version of his passes, and he's completing some of them into very tight windows. He obviously can make plays with his legs. He can extend plays in the pocket, outside the pocket with his legs, throw on the run, all the kind of things that you look for in a modern day NFL quarterback. But is the height going to be the thing that kind of hinders him throughout his whole career? And especially if he doesn't get his accuracy concerns kind of figured out. But, like you said, they've been playing a lot better. The Chiefs obviously have a really, really good defense. So that's something to watch. But I'm confident that the Eagles defense can go out and shut down just about everybody, and especially, Bryce Young. The last couple of weeks they played, obviously, Lamar Jackson last week, who statistically has been just about the best quarterback in the NFL. Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, all these kind of guys that are just really highly touted and rated quarterbacks, and they just really shut them down. So, I think the Eagles will be able to do that today. It is a little nervous with Reed Blankenship being out in the secondary, but besides that, the secondary obviously has done a great job, and Panthers are going to want to run the ball. It's definitely something that we're going to have to watch for. But in terms of Bryce Young beating us with his arm, I don't really know. I feel confident, at least, that the Eagles defense can do a good job against him.
Yeah, Christian McCollum will be starting at safety with no Reed Blankenship. He's out with that concussion. And I mean, last week the Eagles won in Baltimore a good amount without Reed Blankenship, and Christian McCollum was serviceable. Had to make some big plays, made them. Avonte Maddox was out there as well for a little bit. Quinyon Mitchell missed a little bit of last week's game with an injury. He ended up coming back. But I mean, guys were coming in as backups and being serviceable.
That's something we've seen all year from this team. They've had a lot of injuries, while there hasn't been many except for really Brandon Graham and James Bradbury that have been out for the whole season, even though Bradbury was only supposed to be out for 6 weeks, but we still haven't seen him yet this season.
I forgot he was on the team, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I know. It's
really forgot about that.
I was thinking about the other day, but I mean, Quinyon obviously has just been so good that there's no reason for him to be even activated. But anyway, so they've had little injuries here and there. Obviously, Devontae's missed some time. AJ's missed some time. Darius Slay's been in and out. But every single time, these guys have just come in, and next man up mentality is what made that 2017 team so special. And while knock on wood, we haven't really had, besides Brandon, those season enders. In the times when guys have been hurt, because there have been a lot of injuries this season, these backups have come in and they've done their job. They've really stepped up. They've helped this team continue this winning streak. I mean, Grant Calcaterra, another one who will be starting today because of Dallas Goedert being out. I know we'll talk about that later, but he's someone who stepped up. Isaiah Rodgers last week, I thought, did a really, really good job stepping up with Slay being out for last week's game. So, these guys have come in. The Eagles are very deep. They have a very deep roster, very deep team, and it's definitely been showing.
Yeah, it sure is. And something else that's deep is the talent at the linebacker position. What? Talent at the Eagles linebacker position. Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean are the two highest graded linebackers since week 6. Bonds has a 91.8 and Dean 85.2. They're incredible. And Zach Bond came in. People were like, who the heck is this guy? Nakobe Dean was a relatively high draft pick. Didn't really show much his first year or so, and here he is flourishing, and Ball's been unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing. This is definitely not something that we have been used to as Eagles fans. This is not a position that the Eagles put a lot of value on. Even these guys, Zach Bond, 1 year, very small contract, and Kobe Dean, obviously a third round pick is very valuable, but it's not like he was a first or second round pick. So even taking a linebacker in the third round is high for the Eagles. They've just turned into some two really good players. Obviously you got to give a ton of credit to Howie and Vic for Zach Bond and identifying his talent was being misused in New Orleans and transitioning to that stand-up linebacker position. And then for the Eagles to stick with Nakobe, first couple of years, he looked like he might have been a bust. He wasn't really getting on the field. Obviously, he had a ton of injuries, and a lot of that, I think, was because of his size. He's obviously a little bit on the smaller side, but Vic Fangio has found a way to use him and use him to his strength. He's an amazing rusher, rushing the passer. He's done a great job on blitzes, which is something in the past that we know our defensive coordinators didn't love to do, was they didn't really like to blitz. And now we've seen Vic Fangio time it up at some certain times and use Nakobe in that area, and he's been amazing at it. And I think with Nakobe, too, one thing he's gotten a lot better at in the beginning of the season to now is coverage. In the beginning of the season, he was kind of getting beat a lot on coverage, and we haven't really noticed that really since for a while. And then obviously Zach Bond has done a great job in coverage in every aspect of being one of those stand-up linebackers. It's amazing. I hope that the Eagles find a way to keep Zach Bond. Obviously, he's going to cost some money, and Howie's going to have to shell out some money for him. But I think after the last season of seeing them kind of switch philosophy and paying a running back to Saquon Barkley, and now with how much these linebackers have transformed this defense, maybe they start to put a little bit more monetary value into them.
Yeah, you said it right there, and Zach Bond, he certainly is deserving of that contract from how incredible he has been this season and has fallen under the radar of the entire NFL, which, Zach Bond wasn't the exact name we thought we'd be talking about as a name falling under the radar throughout the NFL this year.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's going to probably be first team All-Pro at that linebacker position. That's just absolutely insane for somebody who wasn't even playing that position last season. Just his ability to learn the position so quickly and adapt, and obviously Howie plays a lot into it, but you got to give Fangio the most credit because he's the one who has put him in these positions to succeed, and obviously the linebacker coach as well. I don't know his name, and I'm sure that we need to learn his name because there's no way that he has done a great job developing these guys. I'm confident that Jeremiah Trotter Jr. will be able to step in eventually because he's just done such good job of developing these guys, and it's a real testament to him as well.
All right, so we got DJ Elliott as the linebackers coach and Bobby
That's
King
right.
as the inside linebackers coach. So
there you go.
Give Bobby and DJ some credit when you're talking about the greatness of the Eagles linebackers. And you mentioned him a few minutes ago. Someone else that's been great this season. He's not falling under the radar, though. Saquon Barkley, man. That run last week in Baltimore, handoff, went to the outside, broke a tackle, got into the end zone, stuck that fork into the Ravens, got the win for the Philadelphia Eagles. That felt to me like his MVP moment, sealing the deal once again in the fourth quarter. He's been doing it all year, and he's not going to stop. And this Panthers defensive line allows a league high 166.8 rushing yards per game. That is nearly 20 yards higher than the next place team. The Panthers defensive line is absolutely horrible. The rushing defense is absolutely terrible. Their secondary is pretty solid, though. So, we're going to get a pretty big day from Saquon.
Yeah, every day is a big day from Saquon. You go up against the number one rush defense in the Ravens. They hadn't allowed a 100-yard rusher, and then boom, Saquon Barkley comes in, puts 110 on him, and scores the game-winning touchdown. His ability, what I love so much about Saquon, obviously such a talented player and great guy, all that, like we've talked about all season long. But Saquon's ability to be patient is, I think, my favorite trait from him. Hit as a runner. He lets the blocks develop in front of him. Sometimes I think one of the biggest reasons why, and the biggest difference between him and some of these guys we've had in the past, DeAndre Swift, Miles Sanders, whoever, while they both had great seasons over 1,000 yards rushing, each, they never really reached the heights that Saquon did. One, because they're obviously not as talented, but two, some of these running plays just take a little bit longer to develop, and these guys would love to, if the hole is not there immediately, they're trying to break it to the outside and they're losing yards. Saquon Barkley never loses yards, no matter what. He's getting at least 2 or 3 because he's patient and he waits for the holes to develop. You watch him; he's kind of waiting there behind the line of scrimmage, behind the lineman, and then as soon as that hole hits up, he just blasts through it. And it's just a split second here or there. It's not like it's 2-3 seconds, but it's something that he just does so incredibly well. And even in terms of patience, in terms of just being okay with not having a great first half, not trying to, bounce everything to the outside because he's trying to hit that home run. He trusts his offensive line. He trusts that he's going to wear these guys down. And then all of a sudden, fourth quarter, third quarter, when you need it the most, there he is for the home run. And that's exactly what we saw last week. He didn't have a great first half. The Baltimore Ravens did a very good job of stopping him in the first half. But, this offensive line just wears the other team down. Saquon Barkley just wears the other team down. And if you give him a hole, he's going to turn it into a home run. And that's what he's done all season long. And he's been the best player on this team. Obviously, I feel like I say the same things every week because he's just so amazing. But every week, it just seems like he comes up with a home run. There's no other player who's as explosive and as big, who has as many big plays as he has this season. And in terms of the MVP, I believe he's the MVP. It's hard because of, obviously, it's a quarterback award, and if you take Josh Allen off the Bills and then you take Saquon Barkley off the Eagles, it's not really comparative. But in terms of how important he has been to this team and how well he has played, I think as a running back, he's played better than Josh Allen has as a quarterback. But I think ultimately Josh Allen, unless Saquon Barkley wins or breaks the NFL's rushing record, I think Josh Allen will win the MVP.
Yeah, that Offensive Player of the Year awards is, a lot of people say that's the real MVP award or Best Player award. I guess you could more say that. Saquon's definitely going to win that if he's not MVP. So, there's still something there. Yeah, if you give Saquon Barkley an open hole, it's barbecue chicken from there. That dude's exploiting it, and he's, as you said, he's not just hitting a home run a lot of time. He's hitting a grand slam.
Yeah, it's crazy. So many games. You go back to New Orleans, he obviously had that huge touchdown run. The Rams, best game of his career, obviously, 255, but huge touchdown run. Last week, huge touchdown run. Washington, he had those 2 really big touchdown runs. And it's crazy because most of his runs, he finishes them off. He finishes them off in the end zone. He has so many touchdowns this year, and none of them come from within the 5-yard line. They're all coming from midfield. It's wild. And he's on pace still to break Eric Dickerson's record. I see, he's only 109 yards away from breaking LaShawn McCoy's record for most yards in a season by an Eagle, which, he could easily beat today. You said it, the Panthers' rush defense is by far the worst in the NFL. Obviously, the Eagles are going to give Saquon a huge dosage today. And it's hard to not expect them to have another big game. His over-under for the game in rushing yards, I think it's 119.5 the last time I checked it, which is just absolutely absurd. And how do you not go over, right? I think they're going to definitely, unless this game's an absolute blowout. When you're only throwing it 18.5 times a game, Saquon's going to be out there and leading the charge. And I really hope he gets the rushing record this year because, he's had just about as special season as we've ever seen from any player as an Eagle.
Yeah, and he's, as you said, should break that record today, 109. Shady's all-time rushing record in the season. It's week 13, and Saquon's breaking this record. That's pretty insane. And the Eagles will get some help in the air against the poor secondary. Devontae Smith is returning today. He's been out for the last few games. He's finally back. But Dallas Goedert, as we mentioned earlier, is on the injured reserve now with that knee injury. The plan is for him to return at full speed heading into the playoffs. This happens seemingly every year with Dallas Goedert. Grant Alcantara Is this his time to shine and play for that starting role next year if the Eagles don't bring back Dallas Goedert due to these injury issues?
Yeah, I mean, first I'll say about Smitty. Obviously, it's great to have him back. Unfortunately, this year for both him and AJ, have been up and down over their careers as Eagles. They've been very healthy, and this year, sometimes the injury bug just gets you, and it seems like they've both had it a little bit this year. Hopefully, knock on wood again, they're through the woods with that, and we'll have them both healthy down the stretch. But it's obviously big to have Devontae back. I'm excited to see now. Hopefully, everyone's been saying the reason the passing game isn't as good as we think it is because we've only had one of the guys. So, hopefully that can kind of help fix the passing game a little bit. But definitely excited to have them back. But yeah, in terms of Goddard, he's unfortunately just always injured. You look in his career, he misses time every single year. This is the second time he's missed time so far this season. And I think it's pretty obvious that the Eagles are going to be drafting a tight end this season in this upcoming draft. They did it with Zach Ertz, and Zach Ertz was coming off having over 110 catches or whatever it was, whatever he ended up with that season, the franchise record. And they still drafted Dallas Goedert that next year. It's definitely something that we need to watch for, and I think people are starting to realize that Dallas Goedert's time as an Eagle might come to an end because he's going to be up for a contract, I believe, this year, maybe next year, one of the two. And it's hard to, as talented as he is, it's hard to pay a guy who's just unreliable to stay on the field. And I think, obviously the NFL draft is a very long ways away, and nobody wants to think about that right now. But I think if the NFL draft was tomorrow, the first round pick would be an edge rusher and the second round pick would be a tight end. It's just the unfortunate reality of Goedert's career as an Eagle. And, this is a big spot for Grant over the next few weeks. Grant Calcaterra has been really good since this year, especially in his second year in the league. He's gotten a lot better as a blocker. He's still not there to the Dallas Goedert level, obviously. But coming out, he was a receiving tight end who needed to work on his blocking. And he's had some good games when Dallas has been down. Him and Jalen went to college together at Oklahoma, so they have that chemistry already. And it's definitely an opportunity to show that he can be the guy next year. Possibly. I still think the Eagles will draft a high tight end next year or try to sign one in free agency. But in terms of Grant, I think it's definitely he should take it as an opportunity to possibly be the tight end one next year.
Yeah, he should, and we'll see how it's looking today with Grant Calcaterra. Dallas Goedert's contract is up after the end of the 2025 season, so his rookie extension of 21 to 2025. So the Eagles,
yeah.
We'll
so I mean, they'll probably do what they did with Ertz. Draft a tight end, probably second round, let him be the tight end too, or kind of sit behind Goddard and just have him develop that first year and have him be ready to be that next tight end after Dallas Goedert's contract expires. And it's an unfortunate reality because we all really like Dallas Goedert, but you can't be paying guys who just can't stay on the field, and it just is what it is.
It is what it is. So we'll see what we see from Grant Calcaterra over the rest of the regular season, and Dallas Goedert should be returning for the playoffs. Another guy who's returning for the Eagles today, Darius Slay, is back today after a concussion. He 2 weeks ago he suffered the concussion.
Rams game, yeah.
Yeah, so we saw some Isaiah Rodgers last week. He was all right, and then a little Quinyon Mitchell, of course, locking it down on the other side. However, Reed Blankenship is out with a concussion today. He suffered that last week. That's a big loss, but we mentioned Tristan McCollum. He played well last week, and we look to see him play well again today, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, having Slay back is obviously good. It's going to be interesting to see because another guy, this year, hasn't really been the story of his career, but it's been the story of this year is that Darius Slay's just been in and out. We've seen Isaiah Rodgers a lot this season. It seems like Darius Slay gets hurt every first quarter, and then he comes back, and then he gets hurt again, or he's out for the rest of the game. And obviously this one was a little different because it was a concussion. But it's obviously good to have him back. I think when he's played really well, but unfortunately he hasn't been on the field that consistently enough. But yeah, Reed being out is obviously big. Reed has been playing really well this year. Him and CJ back together have been really good in the backfield. Tristan McCollum made a big play last week on that fourth down. swatted that ball away. Should have been an interception, and no, he probably wants that one back, but it was still a good play. It actually, fourth down, it's kind of better to just swat it down because then you get better field position. But it'll be interesting to see how he, has to play through a full game. Obviously, hopefully Reed's not out for too long. We've kind of seen these guys who had concussions this year with Slay and Smitty and a few other guys when they miss 1 week and then they're back the next. So hopefully that'll be the same for Reed. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see Tristan back there. I think we would have liked to see a little bit more Sidney Brown if he was in this week, but unfortunately he's going to be out as well. So, besides those two guys back there, they don't really have much. So they're going to have to go through playing a lot of snaps today, and hopefully Tristan can play well. And unfortunately, this might mean when we see some Avonte Maddox snaps. Last week, as soon as he got in the game, he got targeted. It's a big thing on Twitter that as soon as Avonte Maddox is in the game, everyone on Twitter starts going crazy because every single time he gets beat. So hopefully we don't have to see him too much today, but unfortunately we might have to.
Yeah, either he's getting beat or he's getting called for a penalty in some sort of way, which just seems like, I think his first play last week, he got a flag called on him. So, not the best.
Well, it's crazy too because he was really good. He was such a good slot corner, and then he's not even that old, but it just seems like he's just fallen off so much. Obviously, injuries for him have been a big thing as well, and those take a toll on people's careers. But yeah, it hasn't been a great year at all for Maddox. I mean, he got beat out by Coop, and he hasn't really seen the field much since.
Yeah, him and Dallas Goedert may be moving out into a into a new All right. Let's look at the path to the 1 seed before we move on to our closing ceremonies, as we like to, we do the same closing stuff every week. But the path to the 1 seed, the Eagles' remaining opponents, they have the Carolina Panthers today, I should say. And then they host the Pittsburgh Steelers, go to the Washington Commanders, host the Dallas Cowboys, and then also host the Giants to end their season. The Lions just beat the Green Bay Packers on Thursday Night Football, and then they will host the Buffalo Bills, which is going to be an incredible game next week. Yeah. They go to the Bears, go to the Niners, and then host the Vikings to end their season. Lions' schedule a little more difficult than the Eagles, but the Eagles have a lot of inner division games. How does the path to the 1 seed look? Because for me, it doesn't look great.
Yeah, I think if the Lions lost on Thursday night, we would have had obviously the inside track to the 1 seed. We would currently be holding the 1 seed right now if the Detroit Lions lost on Thursday night. So I think that obviously the Lions winning that game is a big blow to the Eagles getting this pass. But obviously the Lions have a lot harder of a schedule. They have the Bills, like you said, who is going to be a really good game. I really hope, I don't know the time of that game, but I'm praying it's not at the same time as the Eagles game next week, because I really want to watch that one. But I think the biggest thing for the Lions is they have to go at the Bears and at the 49ers. While those two teams are probably not going to make the playoffs, they're both still feisty. Obviously the Bears playing in a division game. The Bears should have beat them on Thanksgiving, and they're both outside games. The Lions outside of a dome are not the same team as they are inside the dome. Jared Goff outside of the dome is not the same quarterback he is inside of a dome. It's the wildest thing, but it just is what it is. Obviously temperature control and all that kind of stuff is there. So those two games are going to be really interesting. And then if the Vikings keep winning, I mean, that's a huge game for the division at the end of the season. So while it is definitely definitely unlikely, I think, that the Eagles will get the 1 seed, I think there is obviously a chance, if we win out, which we definitely can, and the Lions lose to the Bills and Vikings, then we have the 1 seed. But it's going to be tough. Obviously, it's out of our hands, unfortunately, now. If the Lions had lost to Green Bay, then we would have controlled our own destiny, which now we don't, unfortunately. So while I say that we're probably going to be the 2 seed, I don't think people should just kind of throw the idea of being the 1 seed away, because the Lions, they do have a tough schedule.
They sure do. Another quick thing before we jump into our noble matchups and everything. We saw last week the Eagles, they started going to the air a little bit, like towards the middle of the game. It kind of felt like the turning point on offense. Started throwing to the air. Jalen Hurts completed great passes. A.J. Brown was huge. And then that was kind of it for when they went to the air. The Ravens did not have a good secondary, but the Eagles really couldn't take advantage of it. Tougher secondary today for the Eagles. Of course, that bad defensive line. How would you like to see Jalen Hurts and Kellen Moore attack the air game today? Attack the passing game?
Yeah, and I think this kind of ties in a little bit. I tried to put it in our little rundown here, but I guess it didn't save. But I don't know if you saw AJ Brown's tweet and delete earlier in the week. I kind of want to touch on that too. He tweeted out basically an Eagles fan was saying that AJ, we need you to come out with the same fire you had last season and 2 years ago, and that basically your numbers aren't the same and all that kind of stuff. And AJ said the fire is still there. There's only so much that I can do. And obviously, AJ deleted that tweet because that doesn't look great on the quarterback. And I think it all kind of ties in a little bit to the fact that the Eagles passing game just isn't that good right now. You can say that it's because of the quarterback. You can say that it's because of the in and out of the wide receivers, which is definitely a big factor. But I think when you just have to look at it, Jalen's just not playing that well in terms of passing the football. He's obviously playing well enough for them to win, and I think he's playing a lot better than he has at the beginning of the season. But they just aren't asking very much of him. And, he was 11 for 19 last week. They won a game against the Baltimore Ravens where he only completed 11 passes. And I've said it all year long. I was very early on. I thought that they were switching the offensive philosophy on when I thought that they were going to just become a very heavy run team and taking the ball out of Jalen's hands. And I've been saying ever since then that it's very concerning for me because when you go into the playoffs, if a team is able to stop the run, what are you going to do? And I think we saw a lot of that concern last week. If Justin Tucker makes his field goals and extra points, it's, going into that drive, the Eagles are down. And yes, they would probably still run the ball, but, I think the Eagles still win the game because Saquon goes and the garbage time touchdown good doesn't happen and all those kind of things. But I think we saw the biggest worry for this team is that when the run isn't working, can they pass the ball? And as of right now, they're just not a great passing offense. I think they tried to get it going a little bit because Saquon wasn't having very much success in the first half. They got it going for a drive, and then it just completely stalled out. And then obviously Saquon was luckily able to get going in that fourth quarter. But the third quarter, they ran 3 plays. They ran 3 plays the whole third quarter. I mean, that is just not going to beat most of the time the elite teams in the NFL. And obviously the defense is the best defense statistically in the NFL. It may just be one of those years where you have an elite defense. You don't have to score that many points on offense. But part of the worry too is that they don't start hot ever. Everyone has kind of just put that aside because the Eagles have won 8 games in a row and all that kind of stuff. So who really cares if they're starting hot, if they're on an 8-game winning streak? But if you're going into Detroit for the NFC Championship game, they hang 14 on you in the first quarter and you can't move the ball. How are we going to be able to win that game? So it's definitely a concern. Hopefully once the Eagles have both their wide receivers healthy for the full rest of the season, but now Dallas Goedert is out, so you're never going to have the full weapons to your disposal at all times, so hopefully with those guys coming back, they'll be able to get it going a little bit more. But in terms of this game, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in my keys to the game, but I would love to see them get the passing offense really clicking today. Obviously the run defense for the Carolina Panthers is the worst in the NFL, and you can't just go away from the run. It's been your bread and butter all season long. But at a certain point, I would love for them to just try a little bit more to pass the ball even. Just a little bit more of a 50-50 split instead of this huge difference that they've been having all year. And it's definitely my biggest worry for the team going into the postseason is that they just have not been great throwing the ball. So on this winning streak, it's crazy that they've won 8 straight games with Jalen averaging about 18 passing attempts a game, but that's just how they've been doing it. And if it leads us to a Super Bowl, then it doesn't matter. But eventually, I feel that they're going to have to pass the ball, and I'm definitely concerned about that.
Yeah, we'll see if that comes. Today would be a pretty, you don't want to take any team lightly, but today could be a good day to try and get some things moving, get some wheels turning. So it'll be interesting to see what the Eagles do today. But Jalen Hurts isn't throwing the ball that much, but he's making winning plays that are winning the Eagles football games. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. 3 straight seasons. The Eagles have started 10-2. They look to go 11-2 today for the first time since 2017. And I think we all know what happened in 2017 and 2018. All right, let's move on
to real quick before we move on. I don't want it to sound like I don't think Jalen's playing well, because I think he's playing very well. I think, especially last week, you saw some of these passes he was making to A.J. Brown were awesome. Some of these runs he's had on third down were awesome. He's a massive part of why this team is on an 8-game winning streak. If you asked me in the beginning of the season how Jalen was playing, I didn't think he was playing very well at all. But ever since they kind of dialed him back a little bit in those limited opportunities he has had, I think he's been playing very well. My concern is just, if he has to throw the ball 35 times in a game, can we do it to win a game? We haven't seen it this year, so I guess that's just why I'm a little bit concerned. And if the team felt like that was the best way for them to win every game each week, was for him to throw the ball 35 times, then that's what they would do. But I don't want it to make it sound like I don't think Jalen's been playing well this year, because he obviously has. I mean, like you just said, even if it's not with his arm, with his legs, he's been making so many winning plays. And, he's turned the ball over. He hasn't turned the ball over in forever. He's really worked on that. He's done a great job of picking up the blitz. That was a huge part of last season. That was a big problem for him, is that he didn't know where a blitz was coming from. But this year, he's one of the top 5 best quarterbacks against the blitz. So he's improved so much throughout the season, and especially in his limited passing attempts. So, yeah, I just don't want to make it seem like, I don't think Jalen's been playing well at all. I think he's been playing really well, especially during this 8-game winning streak. And I think, he's definitely a big reason why they're on that 8-game winning streak.
He sure is, making winning plays and being a pure winner. Our notable matchups for today. Let's get right into it, Sam. We got a special guest waiting in the wings. What are we thinking for our notable matchups?
Yeah, so I got 2 for you. I'm going a little unconventional on the second one, but the first one is Chuba Hubbard versus the Eagles defensive line. The Carolina Panthers signed away Miles Sanders from us, 2 years ago. We all know Miles. Obviously was on the Eagles Super Bowl team in 2022, and he has not had a very good career in Carolina. He's on IR currently, and Chuba Hubbard has just really kind of blown up this season. He earned himself a contract extension. He currently has 919 yards rushing this year, so he could definitely potentially go over 1,000 so far this season. Obviously Saquon and Derrick Henry have been so good this season that no one's really talking about Hubbard, but he's one of the best backs in the league, and obviously with a quarterback that has struggled so far in his career, they're going to try to run the ball. So obviously it's going to be a big game for the Eagles defensive line and linebackers to kind of step up and stop the run. If they can do it against Derrick Henry, I think they can do it against Hubbard. But if Hubbard has a very good game, this is one of those times when Carolina can stick around, because they've done it to some very good teams over the last few weeks. So we definitely shouldn't take him lightly. And then my second one is, like I said, it's a little bit unconventional. Rasheem Blackshear versus the Eagles special teams. So Blackshear currently has 679 kick return yards, which is second in the NFL. He's a complete weapon back there in the kick return game. The Eagles have not, knock on wood again, Eagles have not let up a kick return touchdown this season. And I don't know if they did last year either. The Eagles special teams has been really good tackling, I think. You always see Jeremiah Trotter down there, Sidney Brown, who is out today. So I think that's kind of why I went with this as well, because Sidney's always the first guy down there. So it's going to be on Keeley. It's going to be on Sidney Brown. Some of these other guys, going to be on Sidney, and it's going to be on, keep saying Sidney. Keeley. It's going to be on Keeley, and it's going to be on Jeremiah to make sure that they keep Blackshear in check on these kickoffs, because he's an absolute weapon in their return game. And again, if they get a kick return touchdown, or if they can consistently get short fields, well, the Eagles defense has been amazing. That's how these teams stay in games. Worse teams beat better teams all the time because of turnovers, special teams plays, one player on the offense just carrying the whole team. Crazier things have happened, but special teams is definitely a way for a better team to lose a game to a worse team. And Blackshear is definitely a player that can flip the script for Carolina.
Sure is. All right, our SeatGeek standout stars. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring the show, as they have for many years. Use code Philly Sports Report to save $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Philly Sports Report, $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Link is in the description of the YouTube stream, in the bio of all of our social medias. Who are your SeatGeek standout stars?
Yes, I'm going with 2. I do think that while Carolina has a very poor rushing defense, I do think that now with both the wide receivers back, the Eagles are going to try to pass the ball. We've seen A.J. Brown. He's played very well the last 2 weeks, and I think he's going to be a standout star today. With Smith being back, obviously the coverage is going to be a little bit lighter on A.J. this week. because they're going to have to worry about Devontae as well. That's part of the reason that those two are so good, because you got to worry about both of them. And J.C. Horn, he's had a little bit of a rough season. He was the former first-round pick. I think we all remember he's from the Devontae Smith draft. Patrick Surtain, who's one of the best young quarterbacks in the league, went one pick after Horn. Carolina liked him better out of South Carolina, so they had that inside track on him. And he hasn't had a great season. PFF has him ranked as the 95th corner out of 212 eligible players. So while he is on the average side for a number 8 overall pick, you would want him to be obviously an elite shutdown corner. And he has a 57.1 coverage grade, which is 136 out of 212 eligible players. So while obviously the Eagles are going to run the ball a ton, you can count on Jalen probably throwing the ball under 20 times. I think that A.J. Brown has big playability today. And then Milton Williams, I feel like we haven't talked about him. No one in Philadelphia has really talked about him so far this season because of how great Jalen Carter has been. But Milton Williams has been an underrated stud for this team so far this season. He had a really, really good game against Baltimore last week. He's played really well. And the right guard for Carolina, Robert Hunt, he's a very, very, very good run blocker. He's about 15th ranked as a run blocker. He's a terrible pass blocker, and I think Jalen Carter will have a big game, but I wanted to give Milton a shout out here as well. So I think him and Carter will really be able to take advantage of him today.
Thank you, SeatGeek, for sponsoring that segment. The Gamblers RS locks of the game. You can listen to the Gamblers RS podcast wherever you find your podcasts on the Philly Sports Networks. Eagles are minus 14 today with an over-under of 45. So are you like the Kentucky bettor who pays $3.1 million in the Eagles to win today? Or are you saving $3 million today?
That is insane imagine having $3 million to bet on a money line. Come on now. But 14 is a huge point spread. The Eagles, this line opened at 12.5 Eagles, and then it obviously moved up all the way to 14. I'm not going to give the Eagles 14 points today. I do think the Eagles will win this game. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a blowout, but 14, I can just never lay that many, especially with how many garbage time touchdowns this Eagles defense has given up. The Panthers have backdoor cover written all over them. But I do like the over in this game. And then some props I'm looking at. Grant Calcaterra's over-under receiving yards is 24.5. That's, two first down catches. You're just about there. So I think he can get over that today. And then how can you not do it every week? Saquon Barkley touchdown. I think he's going to break another big one today.
Saquon, how can you not go Saquon? We're flipping some things around today. We're going to our keys of the game today. We got 2 keys for you, Sam. What are we thinking?
Yeah, so the first one, get out to a lead. This Eagles offense, I talked about it with the passing game. They have not done a great job of getting out to lead so far this season. I really think that the one thing that they need to fix if they're going to be a definite Super Bowl contender, they obviously are definitely a Super Bowl contender, but if they want to go out and win the Super Bowl, is the passing game. And in terms of getting the passing game, is getting out to a lead. The Eagles have not scored on a first drive so far this season, which is just insane. Scored a touchdown on a first drive, which is wild. Carolina is a team that'll hang around. You talked about it earlier. They've played some teams very tight. You don't want to let this team hang around. This is a game that you would love to get some of the starters some rest in the fourth quarter if you can. So it'd be great to get out to a big lead. And then I would love to get the passing game going. The last 2 weeks, I've said that kind of in my keys, kind of screw the passing game, do what works for you, stick to the run. Don't go away from the run, even with going up against 2 great rushing defenses. Obviously with a horrible rushing defense this week, I was still with AJ and Devontae back. Love to see this passing game get going just a little bit more. I talked about it at length there for a little while about how they've been middle of the pack. They've been struggling a little bit, but with both these great wide receivers back, obviously they're not going to throw the ball more than about those 20 times, but I would just love to see them move the ball a little bit more consistently through the air.
All right, we move on to our FOCO Fit Check, and today is not just any normal FOCO Fit Check. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have TikTok and you're an Eagles fan, even Instagram, you may see a guy who has an unbelievable amount of jerseys. His name is David Bergner. It's dberg1215 on TikTok. He is with us today. David, how are you?
Doing okay.
All right. What's our fit check today? What are we wearing? And we need to know about all these jerseys behind you.
I'm wearing tight ends. I'm wearing tight ends all this week. I go this season wear a different hat, different jersey, and this week it's all tight ends. This is the theme week.
All right, so we got an 88. So what are we wearing today for Eagles Panthers?
Got it.
Dallas Goedert. All right.
Nice.
All right. So I saw your TikTok the other day, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is an unbelievable jersey." Hank Basket, dude.
Basket. Yes, I have a Hank Basket. Yes, he's
That's
not the most unusual one I have either. I have Bradford. I have Sanchez. I have Josh Huff. I have some bad ones in there.
So like you have all these crazy jerseys. Like, how and where are you getting all of these like crazy player jerseys? Are you making them yourself?
No. He's collecting over 40 years of collecting. I'm almost 60 years old, and I've been collecting jerseys since I was a teenager.
So are you like an eBay guy, a thrift store guy? I normally find most of mine at thrift stores.
Same, yep.
Oh, yeah.
And I try to color a different name that I don't have.
All right. So like, what's the newest jersey you got? Like, what are we just purchasing?
What did I just purchase?
Like, what's your newest jersey?
Kelly Green. Yeah, I got a Jalen Green. I got Devontae Smith, Kelly Green.
Nice.
All right. What's your
What's
favorite?
the favorite? Yeah, what's the favorite one?
Child. You can't have a favorite. You can't pick it's like picking a favorite child.
All right. If you had to put up a number, a ballpark guess of how many, unless you know for sure, how many jerseys are behind you?
Close to 300.
Wow.
This is just one rack right here. This is just one rack. There's one rack. My room's a little mess right now, but they're over there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, these are all signed right here. Yeah, my room's a little mess. I'm rearranging it. But yeah.
That's crazy.
That's awesome.
And all started like 10 years ago. My wife goes, "How much shit do you have?" I'm like, "I don't know." She's documenting what you have. So I did. And then this year she wanted me to talk. She says, "Talk, make videos and talk and explain." So that's what I did this year. I started started talking this year and explaining it to them.
Well, it's pretty awesome. I feel like every time I'm learning a lot of new players, specifically Hank Basket.
Yeah.
I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, Hank Basket.
Yeah, I try to do different themes every week and like different positions or themes because you can go only 17. You have to change it up. You can't have 17 positions. So I try to write different themes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I got another one coming up. Players known, another week coming up. Players known under a different number.
Oh, okay.
That'll be interesting.
Players like BG under 54, Slay under the 24.
Wow. Yeah, when you think about a lot of those players, like LaShawn McCoy started 29. I have a Jalen Hurts number 2 T-shirt that I hold on to very dearly. A lot of these guys have different numbers coming out.
I get Jai 26 jersey, and I don't even remember him wearing a 26.
Was that? I think he wore 26 his second stint in like 2019 or whenever it came back. I think he wore 26.
Yeah.
All right, so Sam wanted to impress you with his jersey today because Sam wears a different jersey every time. I was looking for my most obscure. I knew I had an Alshon Jeffrey somewhere, couldn't find it. No clue where it is. So Sam, what are you wearing today in our Foco Fit Check?
Yeah, this is definitely the most obscure one I have. The Eagles only wore this in one game, but it's a Brian Dawkins one from when they wore the yellow and the blue. I remember this game vividly. I was very young, but I remember seeing these jerseys and thinking, wow, that's the ugliest jersey I've ever seen in my life, but I kind of want one. And I had a Brian Westbrook one back when I was a little kid, and obviously that's not going to fit me anymore, so I was able to find a Dawkins one, and it's one I always love because they only wore it for one game.
It looks like David's got some of them too behind you.
Oh, yeah.
Dawkins, I got a Westbrook, Dawkins, Westbrook, a Kevin Cobb.
Wow. My brother had an Acres one when we were little. He had a little Acres one of this one too. He had every Acres jersey, Super Bowl jersey, white one. He still has an Acres jersey to this day, but he had this jersey and is an Acres one.
I'm looking for an Acres and a Runyon for the yellow.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, David, we are approaching game time, so we thank you very much for coming on. Everyone, go follow dberg1215 on TikTok. This guy's jersey collection is the best I've ever seen, and I've seen some pretty crazy jersey collections. Go give him a follow. Go check him out. And David, your videos are very entertaining. Thank you for coming on today. We appreciate it.
I think I do bad, but thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. David Bergner, what an absolute legend. That's a crazy.
He's my hero. That's gonna be me in 60 years or in 40 years. You're gonna text me one day, hey, I've been thinking about you. What happened? And I'm gonna just send you a picture of my jersey collection. That's my hero right there. I'm working on it. Obviously, I'm not as close as he is, and he's got some crazy ones. But I mean, you send me them all the time, and we're just look up these players and we're like, who the hell are these guys? Like, and I was saying to you, like, who buys them originally? You know, who buys a Hank Basket jersey originally? Like, did they sell it at Dick's back in the day? Did you have to custom make it? Like, was it his brother's jersey when he played on the team that they would wear and they didn't want it anymore? Like, some of these ones that he has are just so random. But it's awesome. It's so cool.
It's a great collection. All right, quick off base from the Eagles, and then we're going to get into our collection. The final 12-team college football bracket is out. Let's give it a quick glance. Here we go. No Bama, no Miami. Clemson versus Texas will play ASU. Tennessee versus Ohio State will play Oregon. SMU versus Penn State will play Boise. And then Indiana and Notre Dame will play Georgia. And that is your college football bracket. That should be interesting. Ohio State, Tennessee looks like a pretty good game. SMU, Penn State.
Is that Notre Dame game at Notre Dame?
Yeah.
My brother won the raffle for student tickets if Notre Dame hosted a college football playoff game last night. They had a raffle that you could enter, and he won it, so he'll be going to that game. Lucky.
All right, so who's your pick? I don't know if you're a big college football guy, but who is your pick to win the college football national championship this year?
Yeah, so I like Oregon a lot. You know, obviously, they had a really big win against Penn State last night. I think that was obviously their biggest test of the season, and Dylan Gabriel's really good. Some of the wide receivers they have are really good. It's a little concerning for them that Penn State put up all those points, but Oregon can score with the best of them. I mean, Notre Dame, top 5 offense, top 5 defense so far this season. There's a big debate in my family group chat last night about whether or not Notre Dame deserves to host the game because they aren't in a conference, so they haven't played some of the best teams. But when they did play teams that were ranked, they really did demolish them. So I think that they have a very good shot as well. But it's hard to pick against Oregon right now. I think they're the hottest team, obviously undefeated, and yeah, it's hard to pick against them at the moment.
Yeah, it sure is. Also, I think it's funny. Oregon wins the Big Ten championship, and they have to play the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State, where Penn State will have to play Boise. Which you're not taking Boise lightly, but that's Oregon's got a difficult matchup there.
Yeah, Ashton Jeanty can beat just about everybody by himself. It seems like so. Yeah, it'll be fun. I mean, it's definitely it'll be interesting now that with the new 12-team playoff format. It's gonna be a lot of fun. See if it makes a difference. You know, if the 4 teams, the 1 through 4, are in the finals, then everyone's gonna say, well, we didn't need this anyway. But hopefully, some of these 5 through 12 make it all the way to make it worth it.
All right, let's give our predictions for today's game. Eagles, Panthers. Eagles looking for their 9th straight victory. The Panthers have lost their last 2 games by 3 points against pretty solid teams. A team that beat the Eagles and the Buccaneers in a a really good Kansas City Chiefs team. I don't think they lose by 3 points today. I think they lose by a lot more. I have the Eagles pulling it on early. Jalen Hurts and Saquon getting pulled early. Hopefully, fourth quarter-ish, get those guys out of the game. I have the Eagles winning this game 31-17.
Yeah, I have a very similar score to you, and I have a very similar feel about the game. You know, Carolina is definitely a team that's frisky, especially with the way that Bryce Young has been playing recently. I think something that's interesting is that, like you said, the Chiefs game and the Tampa Bay game, they both lost those games by just 3 points. But I don't think that's going to be the fate for them today. I think the Eagles win this game 31-20. Like you said, I agree with just about everything you said. I think this is a game where Saquon and Jalen can get out of there in the fourth quarter, and maybe the Panthers can score a late touchdown, late field goal, something like that to get them into the 20s. But I think it's going to be a pretty comfortable win for the Eagles today.
Yeah, you always like a comfortable win. And, I mean, how are you going to bet against the Eagles when you got Quinyon Mitchell coming to the stadium wearing a Quinyamino Bay hoodie?
Yeah,
this is
awesome.
Beautiful.
That's pretty cool. And, you know, we didn't talk about this a lot, but the Panthers wide receivers stink. The guy who has the most receiving yards on the team, Xavier Legette, doesn't even have 400 receiving yards on the season so far. Adam Thielen has been playing well since coming off of injury, but obviously he was hurt, so the numbers are a little skewed there. But I think Q's gonna be able to add another inmate into Guantanamo Bay this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, where do we buy one of these hoodies, man? Like, I think we both.
It'll be linked. It'll be linked on his Twitter after the game, no doubt about it. Or it doesn't have Twitter, so I don't know.
It's probably like you'll see all the scam bots posting the hoodies and stuff. Don't fall for those people. Do not fall.
Oh yeah. Underneath the Eagles' final score tweet, there will be about 10 links to buy their own version of that hoodie already.
I mean, knowing the Eagles, they'll have it in the pro shop by playoff hopefully. So, you know, maybe you're like Christmas gift or holiday gift or whatever. But yeah, that's going to do it for us for the Eagles pregame show brought to you by SeatGeek. Thank you to SeatGeek. Thank you to David Bergner for coming on. He was great going over his insane jersey collection. All right, so that's going to do it for us. Thank you to everyone for watching. We'll be back next week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Big game next week against the Steelers at Lincoln Financial Field. Check out PhillySportSports.com for the post-game summary written by Evan Hartenstein. He's having it this week, so that'll be out post-game. Check out my takeaway article tomorrow afternoon time. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thank you, SeatGeek Photo, for sponsoring. Go Birds!
Go Birds!